Hello again. I'm guessing that most viewers will know that I have little time for those who deny that the Holocaust took place. I have about 2 million books on the subject, including, of course, those by David Irving, and the evidence is overwhelming. I'm aware that some of those who comment here will now start posting cryptic phrases such as wooden doors, but that's fine. In this country, we can say what we please about the Holocaust. We can even say that we think it was a good thing if we're utterly lacking in both compassion and the ability to read. I'm glad that this is the case because, of course, there is no such thing as a definitive and certain history. Things are coming to light all the time which make us change our view of the past and revise our opinions. Even mad people can sometimes contribute to this process. I'm prompted to mention this because there is an insidious movement in Britain which hopes that a law will be passed which makes it illegal to question any historical event. You did hear that right, not just questioning the Holocaust, but also things such as the details of terrorist attacks in this country over the last few years. Let me explain. There's a weird guy called Richard Hall who either thinks or purports to think that the Manchester bombing 5 years ago didn't really take place and that the whole thing was a hoax organised by the government. Now, it may be that he's a loony, or on the other hand, he might be making money out of this nonsense. I've no idea. Either way, he's been hunting out the victims of the bomb and trying to prove that they were not really injured in the Manchester Arena attack at all. A survey a little while ago found that 14% of a random sample of the British population, that is to say 1 in 6, believed that the Manchester bombing was staged by the authorities and involved only so-called crisis actors. In the description to this video I give a link to a newspaper article about Richard Hall. Let me quote from it. "There is a growing call for a law to prevent people from denying historical events. We have a law of libel that protects people, and in the same way there should be a law that prevents people on social media from spreading false information that can harm people who have already been seriously harmed," the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, said. "Victims should be prevented from being re-traumatised by denying the historical facts of what happened to them. They should have their right to the facts about what happened protected." The newspaper report then goes on to say, "A statement of the obvious." Well, it's not at all obvious to me. There are already laws to deal with harassment and libel. I honestly don't see why we should need a new law which prevents people from denying that certain events have taken place, or taken place in a way which everybody thinks they have. Let me give an example of what I mean. In 1956, the British, French and the Israelis invaded the Sinai Peninsula and captured the area surrounding the Suez Canal. Although all three nations were acting in concert, the British Prime Minister at the time, Anthony Eden, lied about this and claimed that Britain only went to war after Israel had unexpectedly invaded the Sinai. This was a complete lie, although it didn't come to light for some years. Anybody in the early 1960s who claimed that there had been a conspiracy between France, Britain and Israel to work together to attack Egypt was denounced as being a malicious spreader of rumours and falsehoods. The orthodox version of events found its way into history books, and it was only years later that the truth emerged. If there had been a law in the early 1960s to prevent people from questioning or denying historical events, then those telling the truth about the Suez Crisis would have been liable to prosecution. I remember reading the Daily Herald in the early 1960s, and journalists there were telling the truth about Suez. Those men would have been breaking any law which was designed to stop people denying that some historical event took place in the way everybody thought it did. There is no definite or definitive version of history, whether it relates to the 9/11 attacks, the Suez Crisis, the Holocaust, the Manchester Arena bombings or anything else. We must all remain free to say whatever we wish about any event. There are already laws to restrict us if we go too far and injure people by our foolish and ill-considered opinions.